starting in a few minutes, so can I just ask you to take your seats? And today's event will be streamed live, so when you take your seat, don't be shy. Come as front as possible so that we can show a full house and not show some of the empty seats. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin, so can I please ask you all to take your seats? And if you can start filling up the front few rows first, and then move slowly back. For anyone that comes a bit later, they can take the back rows. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming today. We are really thrilled that so many of you could make it this afternoon. These are difficult times for Hong Kong. However, today's turnout shows that the Hong Kong spirit is strong, and more importantly, that Hong Kong remains open for business. And as an industry, we are working together towards solidifying Hong Kong's place as a leading international maritime hub. Passion and belief. Passion for the maritime industry, belief in the maritime industry, and in paying it forward. These have been the driving forces behind the Young Professionals in Shipping Network. When Tabitha and I founded the organization 10 years ago, it was with the purpose of providing young professionals in the maritime industry with a platform to build relationships and to exchange ideas in order to build a sustainable maritime industry. This has not changed. As we celebrate our 10th anniversary, we wanted to do something different, something special. We wanted to spice things up a bit. And like many of you, we have been following the disruption of other industries by technology. And like many of you non-tech people, we have at times been concerned with the pace of change, of technological change. However, innovation is not just about technology. Innovation at its heart is about looking at a problem, looking at the way we do things through a different lens, and coming up with a different, more efficient way of doing things. And innovation is necessary for our industry. So we thought, come on, there must be innovative solutions within the industry. So let us use our network and charm to find these innovators and these new solutions. Inspired by the TV program Shark's Tank and Dragon's Den, and knowing that we had far more entertaining industry leaders and outspoken industry leaders amidst us, we decided to launch our own Shark Tank, the Captain's Table. What is the Captain's Table? The Captain's Table really is a platform that links innovators to relevant stakeholders, and it's also a platform for ideation. We strongly believe that through collaboration amongst the different stakeholders within our industry and the exchange of ideas between these stakeholders and innovators, we can truly build better solutions to serve our industry. We did not appreciate at that time what a big task this would be. Seriously, we did not know how big it was going to be. But thanks to all our sponsors for believing in us, and there really are too many to name individually, so we've put them up on screen here. We do, however, want to take some time to say a special thanks to a special few. Firstly, we'd like to thank the Hong Kong government for believing in this idea and for supporting us. We'd like to thank Untitled from Caraval Group for believing in this idea from day one and helping us promote our idea amongst the different stakeholders. We also like to give a special shout out to Ronnie from Heron Advisory, Matthias from Betatron, and Chris from HFW Consulting, who have acted as our advisors and mentors along the journey. Today's event will also be streamed live on Splash 24/7, and for that, we'd like to say a special thanks to Sam from Splash 24/7 for making that possible for us. We also like to say thank you to Christine, Olivia, and their team for helping us with today's arrangements and making today possible. We are very, very proud to say that what started off as a small light bulb moment, a small project, is now firmly on the global map of maritime startup events.
And so this is where we are. After launching in April, we received 42 applications from 14 different countries. 12 of these were shortlisted, and 6 finalists are here to present to you all today. As you can see, we did go global. There's a real diverse range of finalists who are here to speak to you today, and they come from Perth, Amsterdam, Marseille, Singapore, and of course Hong Kong. And so what are these startups competing for? Well, the winner of today's event stands to win $25,000 US, a 12-month mentorship and business development program with Lloyd's Register, and leadership coaching by HFW Consulting. So as you can see, a lot is at stake for these finalists. So, before we introduce you to the judges who have the unenviable task of picking a winner today, we would like to invite Benjamin Wong from Invest Hong Kong to say a few words. Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you, Suying, and also Tabitha. It's fantastic to be here. Our office used to be quite near to here, and I think we were one of the first few organizations or companies or units that have used this location for cocktails. So I hope you enjoy the location. And do go around and have a look around. This area actually is part of Hong Kong, and I hope if you are flying in and you are visited to Hong Kong, then you'll enjoy this place. Now, technology, startups, shipping is an area that actually I am always learning all the time also, but I will try to share a bit from our perspective. Earlier this year, our Secretary for Transport, he led the mission together with us to Norway, to Nordics. And over there, one of the main focus was to look at the green ships. Obviously, fuel is one important element, and the technology behind it is very much needed. So we went to some ships, they are LNG and also a battery hybrid. So it's all going very well because Norway, actually, they've got ferry ships which could make use of the technology. So actually it's being used already and proven. But also they have voiced out some issues that they have faced. First of all, the battery charging. When they put in the battery, actually one issue they had, of course, is to charge the batteries. And being a ferry, the turnaround time is quite short. So when they talked with the power company told them that simply they will not be able to handle the surge of the charging. So what they did was that then they built a very large portable charger. It's different, a little bit different from the one you have in your hand. So it's a huge one on a pontoon for the charging. So actually, it's being the pontoon portable charger is being charged continuously, and then when the ferry berth, then they will use it. And then there is also another question that when they are using that, what is the source of the electricity? How is it being generated? If it is being generated by coal, then it's actually equally dirty. And of course, Norway, they have a lot of hydropower, so that's all good. So I think one thing I would like to bring out from this is that technology always is good for one purpose, but then it will be bring on another issues. So that's on the physical side. Now, of course, on startups, I think there are a lot of non-physical, intangible projects or products. Now for that, of course, we've got all the words like blockchain, AI, deep learning. And deep learning, actually, that is what I have, because actually with all these words, I have to Google all the time. And I've done so much Googling on these words more than what I did on my university years. So this is something that I think, which is on the intangible side. So actually, it's something that we need to learn. And there are other things behind it, because from the government, we need to have the laws and regulations to sync together with all these new ideas and new technology. So this is something that the government need to keep up with. But then at the same time, I was sitting next to Agnes, our very experienced insurance experts. Insurance is another thing, right? I was talking with an autonomous driving technology company, and they were partially funded by insurance company. The reason for that is because insurance companies, sooner or later, they have to provide coverage to those cars, autonomous cars. And then they need to know exactly what's the risk behind it. So they are willing to fund it, and then to get the data, get the information behind it. So I think everybody is scrambling by different ways to understand the technology. So does the government. So this is something that's why Captain's Table, Suyin Tabitha, is fantastic, because it's actually bringing us together so that we could understand more. And of course, the startup community is very important for Hong Kong. My colleague prepared for some information for me. I think from the year 2014 to now, actually, the VC fund invested in the startups in Hong Kong. Actually, right now, last year, it was 13 times more than 4 or 5 years ago. So actually, it's quite substantial. But bottom line is that I welcome you, and I hope that you will enjoy this session. For the startups, the good luck to you all. But of course, some would have more luck on this than the others. Yesterday I was on a panel, and he mentioned one thing, that he said shipping is actually a very romantic industry. So I hope that from all those tech people here, they are not in the shipping industry or partially in, because you are providing the technology for it. Enjoy the romance with the shipping industry. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Benjamin. Right, now I have the exciting task of introducing you to our captain's table and our panel of judges. So I will start directly in front of me. We have Matt Treadwell. Hi, Matt. Matt has 16 years of industry experience, and 14 of those have been with Lloyd's Register, and 2 years where he was working for himself with various maritime-related companies to get a broader wealth of knowledge for the industry. He recently moved back to Hong Kong, and we welcome him back. And after spending the last 10 years in Norway, he has also been actively involved in Young Ship. Next to him is Paul Over. Hi, Paul. Paul is obviously very well known in Hong Kong. He is a director of Asia Maritime Pacific and Taylor Maritime. And Paul started his career in 1976 at the Baltic Exchange in London. And he began his ship-owning path when he joined Jardine Shipping in Hong Kong in 1980, and also spent time with Continental Grain. In 1987, he co-founded a small company you may have heard of called Pacific Basin, together with Chris Buttery, and he's recently rebased himself back in Hong Kong, where he has roles with AMP and Taylor Maritime. Next to Paul, we have Ingrid Kleistad. Ingrid is the COO in Catapult Ocean, a seed fund and accelerator investing in startups with a positive impact on the ocean. Catapult is based out of Norway, but works with startups all over the world. And through its work, Catapult has raised the profile of impact investment in the ocean space, and we welcome her to Hong Kong. Next to Ingrid, we have Angad Banga. Angad, also very well known in Hong Kong and he in the shipping community, and he's the COO of the Caravel Group, where among other roles, he oversees responsibility for the group's asset management, strategic investments, and serves on the board of directors for Fleet Management Limited and Mandarin Shipping. He's also a director of Caravel Group's private equity investments. Next to Angad, we welcome Catherine Madonia. Catherine joined Venture Vectors in mid-2017, and her focus has been on supply chain, e-commerce, and ad tech investments. She supports the portfolio post-investment through strategy development and execution of business development tasks to secure new clients, investors, and hires for a number of their portfolio companies. And last but not least, we welcome David Richard, who sits next to Catherine. David has been the CFO of Gulf Oil Marine since its inception in 2008. Richard is responsible for the overall financial strategy and direction of Gulf Oil Marine, as well as information and technology. Prior to joining Gulf Oil Marine, Richard held previous finance roles with Louis Vuitton Group in sourcing and in the retail sector at Decathlon. So welcome all, and thank you to our judges. We're very excited to have you here, and we have a really broad spectrum here today. We've got a ship registry, we've got ship owning capabilities, we've got impact investment, we've got ship management, we've got VC, and we've got lubricant oil suppliers as well. So we've got a real spectrum across the industry, as well as investors. So we think they make up a fantastic table of captains, and I'm sure they're going to be entertaining viewing. So a couple of housekeeping matters. Please make sure your phones and smartwatches and everything else are switched off. Obviously, this is being streamed live. Kindly ask for no or limited swearing, please. And just for the audience, we're quite interested to compare the audience vote. We've left some cards on your chairs, so it'd be great if you could, throughout the course of the afternoon's events, obviously once you've seen all the 6 finalists, cast your vote. It doesn't go towards the final winner, but it's interesting to compare, and we'll be announcing that later on today. So we now invite you to sit back and enjoy the show. And we would like to invite Rowan Fenn from Keychain to come up to the stage, please. Please give him a warm welcome. Keychain are automating the bunker supply chain from sourcing to settlement, and we welcome him to Hong Kong.
Thank you. Every person on this planet benefits from the shipping industry, even though most of us take it for granted. At any point in time, tens of thousands of ships carrying hundreds of thousands of crew work tirelessly to deliver fuel, food, medicine, and the goods and products that we need to run our global economy. And we have a responsibility to continue to find innovative ways to deliver products around the planet in a more cost-effective, efficient, and sustainable way. One ultra-large container ship leaving the port this morning will emit more sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere in 24 hours of steaming than 58 million cars in a year. Today, we will burn 4.6 barrels of bunker fuel and put 1 million tons into the atmosphere, more than Canada, Brazil, or the UK. MARPOL 2020 is the first step. MARPOL 2020 is the first step in a journey to a cleaner and more sustainable future. But the problem for ship owners today is that it increases risk and cost in the marine fuel supply chain. The bunker supply chain is highly manual. A single transaction includes more than 122 touch points and can take 120 days till settlement. This highly manual process lends itself to misappropriation and misallocation, and the industry budgets $3 billion a year for theft and fraud. It's a highly litigious process, and assurance on volume and quality is more important in the context of MARPOL 2020 than it's ever been at any point in history. In short, this process is haunted by unnecessary complexity. It has incredible amounts of inefficiencies, and it's an imperfect opportunity to apply existing technologies to unlock operating efficiencies. My name is Rowan Fenn. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Keychain. And together with DNVGL, we developed the world's first digital management system to fully automate the bunkering supply chain, from sourcing and procurement to settlement, and including everything in between. We use artificial intelligence, IoT, and blockchain technology to deliver the process you know at a fraction of the cost and with none of the headache. In Singapore, where we operate today, the market for this product is $25 billion a year. But shipping is a global industry, and the global market for bunker fuels is more than $100 billion per annum. Hydrocarbon custody and title transfers are not unique to the marine sector. They happen on land and they happen in the air. And so the global market for transport fuels is more than $1 trillion per year. Our technology is highly scalable and easily adaptable to exploit market opportunities in adjacent markets. We registered our company in December in 2018, and in June this year, we executed the world's first LNG bunkering transaction on a blockchain. We have attracted 7 industry partners, including DNVGL, GTT, and Ascens, and we're in ongoing conversations with some of the world's largest and most admired oil and gas companies, shipping companies, and bunker trading entities. We were recently accepted to the Microsoft for Startups program. We were recognized by CIO Outlook as one of the top 20 enterprises in 2019, and we have the privilege of participating in the first cohort of this prestigious competition, the Captain's Table. In the last 11 months, my team and I have presented at over 50 conferences at every major market in the planet, testing our product and learning as we go. In 2020, we hope to execute a commercial pilot of the platform. By 2023, we want to capture 30% of the global bunkering market. Before 2025, we want to deliver the world's first carbon neutral voyage using carbon verification and offset technology. That's 5 years ahead of the IMO 2030 targets. We are here today to ask for partners. We want industry partners to go on this journey with us, and we want capital partners to help us accelerate this journey, capture this opportunity, and bring the future forward faster. In return, you'll get the opportunity to work with a world-class team on cutting-edge technology to transform the maritime industry and increase the carrying capacity of the planet. In closing, I'd like to thank everybody in the audience and the judges for taking the time to come and listen to us today. And I'd like to thank Suyin, Tabitha, and everybody on the Captain's Table team for presenting us with this fantastic opportunity. Thank you.
And now we have 15 minutes of Q&A by the judges.
Sorry, I'll have to stand by the lectern because I might need the slides. But
Thank you, Rowan.
thank you, David.
Brilliant expose. Want to
Project.
just hello,
Louder.
Rowan. Can you hear?
I can.
Can you
yeah.
hear? Okay. Would it work for other products? I'm thinking about lubricant, for instance.
Absolutely, it will work for other products. So we look at it as we're focused on a hydrocarbon custody and title transfer at a particular point in the hydrocarbon value chain, but we can extend this product all the way up the value chain as well, and also into adjacent products and services that happen at the quayside. So tracking and tracing lubricants, lubricant oils, and also other products that go from offshore or from onshore to offshore is easy to do. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Rowan.
Yep.
Rowan,
Yep.
glad it's working now. Can you walk us through how you guys are thinking about, bridging the digital with the physical with respect to the fuel oil that's ultimately delivered on a ship and ensuring the quality and the provenance of what is delivered onto the ship?
Yep, absolutely. So very important in this process is the custody of the asset as it moves. And in the digital world, what becomes very important is the custody of the data and the information about that asset as it moves. And so when I made reference to using IoT, what we do is connect to an IoT-enabled mass flow meter, which we can allocate at different points in the supply chain. One of the reasons for working in Singapore, and there were many, but it's that mass flow meters are mandatory in Singapore. So we can actually pull the number, the volume number, directly from that mass flow meter in order to get volume. As it relates to quality, if it's a heavy fuel, there's an independent party that's doing the testing. We're looking at a POC with DNVGL where we tag the testing bottles. When you scan those bottles, they'll come up. The independent lab will get an interface. They can put the information, the quality results directly into that interface, and it's attached to the intelligent contract in the blockchain. So we don't lose custody about volume and quality information. And very importantly, we can track and trace who put that volume and quality information in, whether it was a machine or a person.
I have a question as well, but first of all, thank you for excellent delivery.
Thank you.
Fantastic presentation.
Thank you very much.
But what would you say is the greatest barrier for adoption in the industry, and how is your team overcoming that?
That's a good question. I think the greatest barrier to the industry is, perhaps without being too rude, is maybe the industry itself, if that makes sense. In order to try and overcome that, we've put a lot of time and energy into making the product as simple as possible. So if you're trying to look at using Industry X.0 technology to improve your business, you don't have to be an expert in IoT and blockchain and AI and all these other topics anymore. We're going to put that application in your hand on your mobile phone. It's simple to use, and also the user will recognize the process. So they'll recognize the bunkering process today. We're leveraging off some of those existing behaviors. You'll still get emails, you'll still get notifications on your phone, but it's the easiest way to go about doing your daily work, if that makes sense.
I'll defer to my gentleman on my left before I say anything.
Is it a question about competitors?
Well, I don't want to be. I don't want to just go up and down the line, you know.
Yeah.
No, actually, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for a great presentation, and again, yeah, very well executed.
Thank you.
In terms of competition,
Yes.
what competition is out there that you're aware of, and what sets you apart?
It's a good question, and it depends what lens you put on the competitive landscape. So you've got a bunch of, we'll call them incumbent solutions that are all based on centralized ledgers. So this is things like SAP and Oracle, for example, ERP type systems. And then you've got the distributed ledger world. But then if you put an industry lens on it and say who's looking at bunkering, there's only really 2, maybe 3 projects that we're aware of. One of the other projects is, of course, the Lloyd's Register project, which is with Block in Rotterdam. I think we've got a slight competitive edge on Block because we've done a lot of work in the past year on making sure we've got working software, product that people can pick up and transact in. And so that's live and it's in pilot today. And also we took a slightly different angle on what we're asking the blockchain to do and how we're tracking provenance. So we're not using DNA markers, or we're not introducing any additional ingredient into the fuel because that adds cost. Rather, we're trying to track that volume and quality using information from meters and from the lab testing companies.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Right. Can I? Well, yeah. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, no, you can, but I just hope that everybody down the back can. I mean, I actually run a shipping company. We actually buy bunkers.
Yeah.
And it hasn't come across to me
What's that?
what you're trying to sell.
Okay.
And I mean, you know, when I see a bunch of guys running and girls running a bunker department, they always claim they're getting basically the best deal. They can get it whatever it is. It works. They now have their friends who can get the product at the right price and all the rest of it all around the world. You come into the office and you say, I can do it better. And what I'm really hearing from you is an app, a thing that does all this. But they will always say, no, he can't. It just doesn't work it just doesn't work. I mean, you can talk about blockchain, you can talk all these other things, but they will push back. So where do you, I mean, you must have been to a couple of offices of smaller and bigger shipping companies where you face this resistance.
Yes.
So what is your pitch when you go in there and you face that natural human resistance to change and all the rest of it? What is it what unlocks what you're offering?
So it's a very good comment, and one of the big barriers when we are trying to sell this product to an organization is the traditional organizational structure in a large enterprise. So when we start to introduce the product, they think of it as a bunker sourcing and procurement tool, and they offer to introduce us to the bunker sourcing and management team.
Yeah.
At the very next stage of that product, it goes to logistics planning management. And so they say, well, but that's a logistics planning team. And then it goes into physical delivery, which is an operations team, and then later through to settlement, which is a finance team. And so it's actually a product that follows that transaction end to end on one screen. A lot of the value comes from changing the way you structure your organization, because now we can use technology to manage a lot of that process, and a single person can run that transaction from one end to the other. I don't know that we've unlocked it yet specifically, but the companies we're working for, or the sector where we found the most traction, is in LNG bunkering. I think because it's a greenfield sector and it doesn't have the legacy infrastructure and the legacy organization and the legacy systems to have to overcome, it's been easier to work with those guys because they can set up a new organization, use this technology from the get-go and start to realize the benefits.
Yeah, but you've given justification for your business plan based on this huge global figure. And of course, LNG will become bigger and bigger. But actually, to make your business really work, you've got to capture all the roughs and scruffs as well.
Heavy fuels, yeah.
Well, that may be too much, but you've got to convince small and medium-sized companies to follow what you're doing.
Yeah, one of the other market entry strategies we've looked at doing, and we're in conversations with 2 large trading companies, is to actually build a product for the bunker traders. And then they can roll out the features as a service to their customers because they've already got a market, buyers and sellers on both sides of their business. And then as a virtual bunker trader would go, if you're looking at virtualizing that function, they stand to potentially benefit, but also not be disrupted by the platform if we are successful.
Can you speak a little bit to your business model?
I can, thank you. So our business model is a platform-based business model. We've got several revenue streams. At the moment, we've been bootstrapping our way to where we are at the moment. So we've been project financing, which is like a professional service type revenue stream. Once we have a product that is commercial, we would invoke the software as a service style fee, and we're looking at, and that's sort of account-based, subscription-based, right? And we're trying to attach that subscription to the vessel itself, the ship, because it's the vessel that we want to attach that information to for the rest of the life of that vessel. And so when we look at the market for ships, it's a fairly large market. If you look at large ships, there's about 60,000 on the water. We're doing our models based on getting about 15% of the ships registered on the platform by 2025. So that's about 8,000 ships, $3,000 a year. The other revenue opportunities that exist once you have transactions running across the platform is to take a clip of all the gross merchandise volume that runs across the platform. So for every ton of fuel, you can take a clip, but that's only for people doing that transaction. And then also, if you look at the bunkering ecosystem, there are a bunch of stakeholders who either contribute information to that transaction, like a third-party tester, for example, or they're interested in reading information about that transaction. That's banks, for example, and insurance companies. So we've had a couple of conversations with insurance companies where they said they'd be interested in information about custody and title, because when they're resolving a dispute, they go through a process called discovery. It costs them somewhere between $1 and $3 million. But for people that transact on our platform, that's information that we can effectively provide for free. Doesn't mean we'll charge free, but it's sort of cheaper for the insurance company to get that record, and also an opportunity for the companies that own the data to try and monetize that information.
Just coming back to some of the points that Paul was raising, when you look at your total addressable market, you're really looking at the value of the bunkers or fuel oils being supplied.
Yep.
That's not necessarily your TAM,
No.
because you're not providing that fuel.
Yeah.
So you're kind of looking at it a much smaller subcomponent of the 104 billion that you're talking about. Is that fair?
Absolutely. So you're looking at putting that volume across the platform as much as possible, and then taking a clip of that. So it's
So
the
then
same as what
15% of that based
a trader
on,
would be taking, right, as a trading fee or commission.
And between now and 2020, when your pilot's coming up, what's your expected cash burn to get to that pilot?
Our cash burn at the moment is about $80,000 a month. Yeah, that's.
And so what is the product that you actually have? Where is the value? I mean, it's in this software, presumably, and a link to a blockchain and da-da-da-da. That's what you're doing. And are you benefiting from any government input or subsidy like that? So you are able to access that sort of thing?
So in Singapore, we've been working very closely with MPA.
Yep.
We started the whole process with MPA.
Yep.
Just to qualify the opportunity before we started to invest time and energy in it. And anywhere we go in the world, even when we come to Hong Kong and we speak to companies like China Merchant, they ask us what MPA's position is on this project. So together with DNVGL, we put an application to MPA for some funding. That meeting was on Wednesday, as in I think it's today.
Good.
But I haven't heard of the outcome.
Yeah.
But yes, hopefully we're successful.
So you'll get some support from that while you're developing it.
Yeah, touch wood.
I think just one final question from me from the impact side of things. You mentioned the carbon neutral voyage in 2025. So how is your solution contributing to that?
Yeah, that's a much more interesting use case to us.
Yeah.
And sort of bunkering is a way of getting companies useful or used to the technology so that we could start to explore those types of opportunities. And bunkering, today you've got this imperative driven by MARPOL 2020. There's an immediate sort of commercial business case. But the net zero use case is really interesting because if you take an IoT meter and you can measure emissions from a vessel, and you can prove that that meter recorded those emissions, which is where the blockchain comes in, then we can create a volume of carbon emissions that needs to be offset. And then if I go onshore and I find someone who has some technology to sequester carbon or remove carbon from the atmosphere, then in a virtual market I can offset those two volumes. And they're both verified volumes. They come from IoT meters recorded in a blockchain. And so you can kind of create a free market for emissions tracking and trading.
Thank you.
So where does the, when a ship owner is buying bunkers, a lot of it is about how much credit you can get on those bunkers. Where does that come into this?
That's also an adjacent market opportunity, we would say.
Well,
so
it's not for the ship owner.
No, it is for us. Yeah.
The ship owner, you come into the office and say, right, I don't have credit to offer. I won't offer you credit.
Yeah.
You'll get kicked out of the office, so you won't even start your night's presentation. So you have to have a solution, right?
Yeah. So in Singapore, we've had a conversation with UOB and a couple of other banks. UOB's got the largest exposure to bunkering in Singapore. When you start to look at automating payments, you're going to get into the trade finance part of this process very, very quickly. And actually, the conversation we had with UOB is we'd like them to try and incentivize customers to work on the platform, because from a UOB perspective, it gives them a lot of transparency. And we can get a dynamic risk profile for a business based on cash flow by looking through the chain. And so actually the opportunity is you can take out a lot of risk from your process, and you can get potentially lower interest rates because that risk is being carried or taken away by that system. So ideally you should be able to get financing on better terms. And also when you're automating payments, we should be able to optimize cash flow for big operators, but also for very small operators. So if we should be able to reduce sort of payment terms to 20, 30 days. I mean, in theory, you could eliminate them, but I think that will take a period of time.
Well, just don't underestimate it. That's all.
Sorry, I think Paul's point is that the bunker suppliers are providing the ship owners with credit.
Right.
That's the point, because that's how the ship owners are financing their bunkers. So it's not from a third-party source where they're borrowing to then buy bunkers. It's from the supplier.
Right.
That's the
So
point,
that's
right?
your competitive environment. I mean, somebody won't perhaps mind paying a few dollars more for a barrel of oil or a ton of bunkers if he can get the credit terms. I know you're in this, I might point out to you, you're in this rarefied LNG world.
Yeah.
The real world of buying and selling bunkers is a little bit more, colourful, should we say.
Yeah.
So somehow your wonderful model will have to have that bit in it as well, I would suggest.
All right.
I
Thank
think
you.
Paul
work on it.
and everyone have given us a lot to think about, and especially Rowan a lot to think about. But can everyone please give Rowan a round of applause? It's not easy to get up here on stage. All right, I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions, and there will be time afterwards as well to address these after the event is over a glass of wine. We'd like to invite our second pitch presenter to come up here. Nidhi Gupta, please, from Portcast. Portcast aim to be the Amadeus of shipping, and Nidhi is here to tell you all about it. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nidhi, co-founder of Podcast. We make shipping routes profitable with accurate predictions of cargo demand and arrival. I spent the last 10 years in logistics. The industry is going through transformation. No one needs it more than shipping companies. Volatile demand is their biggest problem. Here's an example. Historically, in the month leading up to the Golden Week in China, shipping from China to the US is at its peak. Extra ships are deployed and prices are high. A year back, however, the demand was significantly lower, forcing prices to be slashed by 50%. Why? The Chinese government closed down thousands of factories, which reduced domestic production, and a weaker US dollar reduced the import from China to the US. Shipping companies lost millions of dollars in just 1 month as they relied on historical data and deployed overcapacity on the China-US route. But this is not a one-off incident. This trillion-dollar industry, struggling with margins, fails to accurately predict demand, leading to a $30 billion lost revenue opportunity. Currently, companies use historical data, market averages, and intuition to predict how much cargo will be shipped, from where, and when. And any external uncertainties like factory closures or currency rates make the predictions go haywire. Podcast is the solution. We believe cargo demand forecasting is not a shipping problem. It's a data science problem. So we created an extensive database of real-time market signals like economic indices, climate information, and satellite data. We find patterns throughout the supply chain that can disrupt demand, like blank sailings and schedule changes. And we quantify the impact of these signals and patterns using machine learning and artificial intelligence. Together with the historical data, this dramatically improves the prediction results. Using our solution, the shipping company could have predicted that the demand from China to the US will slow down, but China to Australia will pick up. They can respond by shifting the empty containers and setting new spot pricing. Our live predictions have shown accuracy of over 90%, saved more than 2,000 hours for our customers, and uncovered revenue potential of more than $1 million every year for every customer we worked with. We've already done this with 10 of the largest maritime and logistics customers globally. And by the end of the year, we would have done over 30,000 container predictions and made over 150K US in revenues. I've spent the last 10 years with DHL in various leadership roles across Asia Pacific. My co-founder, Ling Shao, built his career in machine learning and product development and has a PhD in that space. We're a team of rockstar data scientists and software developers based out of Singapore and are backed by leading venture capitalists and senior industry advisors. With Podcast, shipping companies can capture up to $30 billion in additional revenue every year. And that's not all. Understanding global production and shipping flows isn't just interesting only for shipping companies. We already have interest from cargo airlines, ground logistics, and manufacturers, so shipping is just the beginning. We have launched our product and are working on scaling that with customers and would be thrilled to see how we can help you be more profitable with AI-driven predictions. Thank you.
I apologize, maybe it seems that there's a slight
It wasn't
issue with
working?
the slides.
All
We're
right.
just going to
Okay.
sort it out now.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You said, I mean, it's great you're already working with some of these massive marine and logistics companies globally, but you're only bringing in around, a fraction of that in terms of the savings. So what would you say is your total market size here when you're already working with some of the massive players?
Right. So the kind of customers that we work with are the large shipping liners, as well as freight forwarders and ports. So yes, in terms of the liners, they are large conglomerates, but when we expand that technology to freight forwarders and ports, that becomes a massive market size. And the estimates that we have currently are $3.5 billion for just this market. But at the same time, we're currently focusing on the container segment only, essentially because of the background of the team. And we could absolutely try to expand this to the other segments of shipping. And eventually, the vision is really how we can bring this technology across the entire supply chain. So if you think about how the airline industry has transformed in terms of revenue and yield management with companies like Amadeus, that's essentially the kind of technology we want to bring to shipping and logistics.
And can you share a bit about the competitive landscape here? Because I think this is probably an area of pain for a lot of the companies that you're serving. So are there others already solving the same type of problem? And what's your KSP here?
Right. Yes, we have seen other companies who are trying to solve the same problem. The biggest competitors that we see for ourselves are a couple of companies, one based in Bulgaria, another in the Silicon Valley. We're based in Singapore, and we're working with global companies on the Asian prediction routes, intra-Asia, Asia to the US, and Asia to Europe. We believe this is where trade really happens. If you think about a decade, this is really what global logistics and shipping companies are interested on. And ultimately, it comes down to the data, and it comes down to what data we have related to Asia and what we can build upon. So our key value proposition, one, is in terms of the technology, in terms of the external data sets and the core machine learning that we've built by working with these large customers. Secondly, because we work with 3 different segments, the shipping lines, the freight forwarders, and the ports, we try to get industry patterns which no single segment has, and that makes the algorithms better, and it makes the results much valuable for any single segment compared to whether they would have done it on their own. And the third thing is that we try to mimic the current workflow of these companies in terms of predicting demand and how that fits the capacity and pricing into our software so that it easily fits into their workflow. It's basically changing the Excel sheets and the gut-based thinking into more machine learning and platform-based thinking. And that makes it much sticky because once they've gotten used to that, it integrates into their workflow. It makes it easier for us to sort of think about other products based on that, and difficult for them to switch.
Sorry to interrupt quickly. Can we just ask that when the judges are going to ask a question, they just give a quick raise of the hand because we're switching between the mics and we don't want anyone to miss the initial part of the question. And also apologies, Nidhi, that's now working. So if you want to refer back to any slides, please do.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, Nidhi, thank you for your presentation. It was very crisp. How do you generate your revenue?
So we're a subscription-based platform. In the last couple of years, what we've done is trials with some of these largest customers in order to get the data, build our algorithms, build a platform, and those trials have all been paid trials for a couple of months through which we've developed the product. And now what we do after the trial is successful, we do a subscription-based model based on the volumes that we predict. What we're also trying to do is build a self-use part of the product where we just allow a demo, a simple trial for a month. They can run the predictions. If they like it, then they can switch to a subscription model.
So will it be a percentage based on the turnover or per unit, per cargo?
It's per container.
Per container.
Yes.
Can I have an idea of how much, or is it?
Happy to tell you about the
later.
numbers later. Yeah.
Nidhi, could you explain a little bit why the customers are incentivized to give you the data? Because what you're saying is, really the holy grail in freight markets.
Yes.
And I think being able to predict the cargo demand and arrival, to me, is really what everyone's been working towards for the better part of 20, 30 years.
Yes.
And perversely, the opportunity set for you could be utilizing that information set to predict where the market's going and capture that market movement versus giving it to someone else who then capitalize off it.
Absolutely. So this is how the industry has done this for decades. Try to use their internal data and predict what the demand is going to look like for their business. So the kind of customers we work with, major liners, they've told us, last Chinese New Year, this is the kind of demand I had from China to the US. What's happening in the market this year? What are my customers telling me? What are the sales guys telling me? And that's how they put in the number in terms of the lifting, the kind of bookings that would come in. And that's how they decide what the spot pricing or what the utilization and the shortfall ratio is going to be. So it's all inward looking. What then happens is any kind of risk that happens in the economy or in operational changes, additional capacity in the market, any of that is more about firefighting. It's not really thought through or planned, even though there's a lag between what happens in the economy and when it hits shipping. So there's an advantage to understanding what we already know about the economy and then try to use that in the predictions. So the advantage that customers get by sharing that data is that we bring that external knowledge. We've kept that real-time external indices which actually matter and which would impact trade movement, and we combine that with the internal data set to provide predictions. They can probably try to get those external data sets themselves. However, the advantage of using an external third party like us is that we essentially build sort of our credibility and our algorithms on that external data sets over time and across multiple customers, which any single company would not be able to do. They absolutely ask us about the data security, etc. And as even a young startup, 2-year-old, we've got an ISO certificate in place. We have regular vulnerability scans. We've tried to ensure that we have all the right security measures so that we can keep their data secure, but at the same time providing them value in terms of the predictions.
And just on that, if you don't mind, so far with the 7-10 customers that you've been working with and the external data that you guys have been using, what have you learned the most from your machine learning models? What are the, without sharing the secret sauce, which is where are you getting more leverage in those models? Is it the economic data? Is it the weather data? Is it container data? Where is that data coming from and the value of it?
So the interesting thing about machine learning is that it's not rule-based. So it's not, these are the 10 things which actually will matter every single time. It's a dynamic model. It changes based on what it sees. So if there's an adverse weather condition like a typhoon, that might impact cargo from moving from one week to another. If there are tariff price changes between China and the US, that might impact trade for China to the US, but does not impact Singapore to the US, for example. So the model looks at these external things, also looks at the capacity changes, the internal pricing changes, the kind of customer profile that the customer has, that the shipping company we're working with has, and then makes its recommendations. And it's not rule-based, so what are the top 3 factors being useful today may be very different from a month later. And that's what machine learning helps in, which human intuition cannot deal with.
Also, just to build a bit on the question from Angad, that my question is, why now? Why is the industry embracing this type of solution right now?
Right. So we're talking about an industry with really low margins. I think the industry has been focusing on really building bigger assets. Ships have become bigger, ports have become bigger. The focus for the last decades have really been on becoming a larger company. If you think about companies like Amazon and Alibaba, they're no longer just e-commerce companies. They're really becoming logistics companies. They have strong last mile capabilities and they're getting shipping licenses, even buying planes. They're going to be a full-fledged logistics company. So how are these traditional logistics companies then going to compete against these digital entrants? And we believe it's not the asset, but it's the return on asset. And data is critical to get that return on asset, but not just their internal data, which is absolutely gold, but also looking at what's happening in the external environment. And that's what we combine to provide these predictive analytics. So I think that's what the industry, so the answer to why now is, one, because of the external changes, but also, again, thinking back to airlines, they started doing dynamic pricing and yield management a couple of decades back when American Airlines started this concept. It's been so long that the industry has been talking about this, but there's really no change. So I think the conversations we've had with the big liners, we do see movement in terms of making that change now.
Yeah, whoever's playing with the sand. Thank you very much. And it's actually relatively familiar sort of model you have, getting companies to share with you their information and then you effectively sell it back to them. There's a company called International Data Corporation, which my wife worked for out here in Asia, and they pretty much did precisely that. But what I like about what I was hearing from you was that you say you bring a number of things to add value to the information that you're given. And can you just run by me what those things are again?
If the slides would work, then this is somehow not moving. Right. So we have 3 buckets of data that we bring. Economic indices, essentially anything that tells us about how trade is changing. So it could be currencies, rates, commodity prices, stock market indices, or freight-related indices. Yeah. The second category is the weather data. So we have really granular data, but I think what makes a difference from a weather perspective is adverse weather conditions. The third is AIS satellite data, but I think what's interesting with that is we build our own data sets in terms of congestion at ports, in terms of capacity changes at ports, schedule changes, etc., blank sailings. And then we combine that with the proprietary data that we get from customers. Right. So that's the value that we bring in.
So, thank you very much. I mean, it won't predict Trump, perhaps, but it will,
yes. I think I would make a lot of money if I would predict the next tweet.
That's a separate one. I joke.
But I think the critical thing is that if there were to be an event of trade dispute of commodity price changes or tariff changes rather, based on what the algorithm has seen in the past, it would be able to figure out what's the lag and what's the time when the next change on shipping would likely to be happen.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, you just touched upon the point that I was going to say in terms of looking at the algorithms in the data sets, how you can incorporate the sanctions, for example, and sort of quickly identify the other markets and how you transport the various cargoes. So in terms of within the sanctions, is there an ability to evolve the current set to look at these areas?
Yes, so again, what we cannot predict is when the sanctions are likely to happen or which commodities, but if we are able to already get the information on which are the kind of products and tariffs which are going to change, that's the data that we can use in the model. So a couple of examples. One that we saw in a certain time frame for a pilot that we were doing for a customer, that the demand from China to the US, from Asia to the US overall did not really slow down, but what happened is it just shifted between China and Vietnam. So there was more container movement that we saw from Vietnam to the US compared to China to the US as it should have been. So these are things that changed because of the kind of trade disputes that were happening, and that's what we were able to predict better.
Could you speak to the accuracy you've been able to affect for your customers since you've been in market now for a couple of years?
Right. So how we predict, how we compare our accuracy is one based on the internal forecast that they have been doing, and second based on the actuals. So we try to do at least as good or much better than what their internal forecast has been, and consistently. And secondly, we try to be as good and as close to the actuals, and that's been on an average about 90%. What we predict is up to 6 weeks ahead on a weekly basis, and it's, if you look at the container movement that's going to happen next week or the week after, companies are likely to know what that's going to look like. It's really week 3 onwards where predictive modeling really helps, and that's where we focus on getting those kind of accuracies.
And if you strip out your proprietary customer data and you just use what's available externally, how accurate are the models?
So what we're doing is not predicting the market with this data. We're predicting for a shipping line specifically what kind of volumes will they have for the kind of customer base and the capacities and the pricing that they have set. So a similar analogy like Singapore Airlines, what is their demand going to look like, not the industry demand from Singapore, for example. So that's why we really need the proprietary data. We wouldn't be able to just rely on the external data set. However, we've just started working on external market prediction, solely market predictions as well, just looking at CTS volumes, which is basically a consolidation of the major lines in terms of volumes. That's available with a 2-month lag, and we can predict it up to 3 to 5 months ahead, and we're getting like accuracies of more than 90% on that. So that sort of gives an idea to a liner what the market prediction is going to look like. At the same time, we give an internal prediction, and that's how they can better judge what the pricing changes should look like.
Great. Sorry, I'm sure you have many more questions, but I have to cut the judges off there, please. And can everyone give Nidhi a big round of applause? She did fantastically. All right, it's time to invite our third pitch of the day before we have a quick tea break up onto stage. So can I please invite Eva Cadillac up on stage, and she's representing today's Sea Routes. Sea Routes are exploring green routes, and she's here to tell you more about it. So please give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh. Hi, everyone. My name is Eva, as Tabitha said. I'm VP Marketing at Sea Routes, and I'm really pleased to be here today to present to you our solution, Sea Routes. It's a real opportunity today to have you all here during this presentation. So I would like to first start this presentation with a question. What's the greenest door-to-door route? Big question, isn't it? Actually, at Searoot, we asked ourselves this question because we have a problem today. The global carbon footprint of freight represented 7% in 2015. And in 2050, it should almost represent 30%. It's huge. Today, we really need and we have to find solution to answer this issue. And at Searoot, we have developed an intermodal engine to explore the greenest routes. I mean, the routes which will emit the lowest CO2 emission. How can we do that? We have developed our own algorithms able to calculate the accurate routes and therefore the accurate CO2 and the true CO2. We answer 3 markets today. The first one with the port. We help them and their customers answer the question which mode and which terminal to have less to reduce their emission, their CO2 emission. Our second market and main market, today is the shipping market. 35% of our clients today are fleet manager and use our solution to optimize their fleet and better plan and better routing, having ETAs and CO2 emission as well. And the third market, we are currently expanding our solution, collaborating with the CMA CGM. We are currently accelerated in their incubator in Marseille at the box. And we are currently working on a global solution, helping them to calculate the door-to-door greenest route. How can we make revenue at Searoot? So first of all, we have a freemium access to our platform. Everybody can have access to our platform and have the right routes. The second is we already sell our APIs and our licenses. You can subscribe, and depending on the plan and the request you need, you have to subscribe for a given prices. And the third one is customization. We help our customer to customize their solution, implementing our APIs in their systems. So today I can say that Searoot is 6 months old only, and we already have 19 clients. We have 40% conversion from trial to subscription, and we look for 100,000 euro revenue by the end of the year. And we have customers who trust us today. We have Mercura, we have Royal Caribbean, we have as well V-Ship, Bernard Schulte, we have as well Oceaneering. They trust us, they trust our solution. No. No, sorry. Okay, oh, sorry. What a mess. So, I hope this won't count in my presentation. So we have an amazing team today. We have sales specialists, we have mathematical genius, we have marketing specialists as well, and we have an amazing team of researchers and PhD currently working on our algorithms and improving these algorithms every day. So yeah, this is the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to meet you and discuss and see how can we help the logistic market go greener. Yeah. Thank you. So I hope I will answer the best as I can.
No,
really.
Thank you for the presentation. It's interesting. couple questions. I guess 2 parts to one question. So firstly is, in this market, how much adoption have you seen when you're pitching to clients on sort of the pure sustainability angle? I think it's a really important mission, but if you're using that as sort of your entryway when you start speaking with these groups, how much of a sell is that for them? And secondly, does the sustainability angle always tie one-to-one to cost savings as well?
They are really, really interested in this kind of solutions today because, and in logistic market as well, because charger, like big companies such as IKEA, Nike, all these big companies, has to give more visibility and transparency to their customer. And today, a research shown, and I can send you the research, that almost 30%, for almost 30% of the buyer, the carbon footprint is a criteria of buying. So more and more companies are looking for this information. So yeah, there is a real plus-value on this kind of product.
And the second part of that was when you have a customer and they're saving costs. Is that always the case by using your solution? Are they always saving costs when they use your solution as well?
Actually, we help them making the best, taking the best solution. For example, from Shanghai to Aschaffenburg, we can show them that the better way, the greenest way, is to go through Marseille-Fos instead of to go through Rotterdam. So actually, we are not really talking about cost. We are really talking about CO2 emission saving. Hi.
I would have thought that your business could be disrupted quite easily because there are many, many companies providing sea route information.
Yeah.
And I would not have thought it was terribly difficult for them to add a green bit on to what they already do. I mean, okay, so I think your one does the sort of worries about the trucks and the port and the shipping, and then the trucks and the port and shipping again at the other end. But I mean, what would be your reaction to that question mark?
Actually, our difference is in the data. We are able to calculate, our algorithms works with big data and ARS. So we gather the vessel information. We have to treat this information, and the way of treating this information is really important to make them and to produce our algorithms. We are the only one on the market today to provide accurate routes, the real routes. For example, I can show that from Rotterdam to Hamburg, there is a traffic separation scheme on the way to go to Rotterdam, to Hamburg, and the way back to Rotterdam. And most of the solution doesn't have this kind of specification in their product. And that is our main advantage today.
Right, well, that's interesting to hear, and I wish you luck with that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with internet connectivity and reliability on the vessels, when you are changing the go green route effectively? Let's just say weather patterns have changed, wind conditions have changed, so the right movement of the vessel needs to take that into account, and you'll need to update that real time.
Yeah.
And how do you get that onto the ship so the master knows to update his route planning?
This is in our roadmap, actually. We are not able today to do real-time update on the navigation. But this is in our roadmap, definitely. Yeah, we are thinking about it. Yeah, in the next 6 months, we will be able to provide this kind of information.
And then connected to that, how are you kind of taking into plan the bunker planning of the specific vessel? Because obviously if the vessel needs to take bunker somewhere else, depending on the availabilities of the bunker, their route will change depending on that. And it's not necessarily as simple as just taking the greenest route.
Actually, on this kind of question, I won't be the best person as a marketer to answer it, but I take the point. And in like 1 hour you have your answer. I have your email, so I will get back to you, in a few minutes.
So I want to build a bit on that question asked by Catherine. So your clients, are they required to report on the CO2 emissions of their routes? I mean, who really owns the problem here? Do they benefit somehow when they can demonstrate that they have indeed chosen a sustainable journey path?
Actually, they can demonstrate that they are green. You know, with the IMO by 2050 and even with 2020, the maritime company will have to show that they are green. It's going to be, it's going to have an impact on their business, definitely. So we are here as well to help them to show the green card. Hey, we are green. We can prove our CO2 emission, and then we have the calculation and the report for that.
Just a bit more about yourself and the team. What's the motivation for yourselves behind this idea? How did this idea come about for you?
This is very personal. Actually, I'm from the retail industry. I used to work in fashion, and fashion is a very superficial world, and always trying to push the consumer to consume. And I couldn't live with this kind of values anymore, so I have to think about something new and something in which I believe, and environment and sustainability is something in which I believe and I trust. And I'm really happy today to be part of this team, and it's a really good project, and I hope we go way.
All right. Well, I'll just ask another question then. I mean, it seems to me that to stay ahead of your competitors, you've got to have, more greenness than anybody else. And you didn't, I don't think, quite answer, the question as to how these other people who provide so much international routing information already have been doing it for 30 years. They're big companies, they do it all the time. It would seem to me that they could stick a green badge on their product and tweak it a bit quite easily, and then say they can do exactly the same as you. So what is it that really differentiates you?
Actually, they have averages, and
well, you have a black box. I mean, average black box. So what is the real difference?
Actually, the secret is our algorithm and how we are able to calculate. Well, to calculate our CO2 emissions, we take into account the vessel, the route, the time.
Yeah.
And as we have the real route, we have, of course, the true CO2 emissions. And in 6 months, we have.
Yeah, no, but so is your competitor.
And in 6 months, the fact is that in 6 months, we will be able to add the weather on the impact of the weather.
They do that too. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah, but not so accurately that we can do.
Right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
On your algorithms and sort of behind the system, has that been independently verified?
Actually, this is a very good question. By the end of the year and beginning of next year, we're really looking for certification. But when we compare our routes to the CMS CGM routes, we are able to say that we have the real accurate routes. Okay. Yeah, but we have, for sure, we have to certificate our calculation, definitely, yeah.
And you mentioned that you take into account the vessel particulars in your model. Can you talk more about that? Do you take CP speed, fuel consumption description into it, and that's how it's utilized to understand the route and also then the CO2 emission based on charter party speed and consumption?
At that time, we take into account the size of the vessel, and we take into account as well the TEU and the tons of the vessel. We are looking for integrating more data in this calculation of the vessel, definitely. And we work for this really tough with our engineer to have these results. Yeah, this is part of the roadmap.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Seva. Can everyone please give her a big round of applause?
Thank you.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the first half of the show. And we're going to take a very short tea break now, about 15 minutes. We've got tea and pastries and everything to refresh yourself. And our captains here are chained to the table, and they now have to deliberate among themselves on what they thought of the first three. But yes, please help yourself to tea and coffee, and we will be back shortly with the second half of the show. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to start with the second half, so can you please take your seats as quickly as possible? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We're about to start with the second half. Thank you. Just one quick announcement as well. We mentioned it before, but a couple of people have joined since. On your chair, there's a voting card we've put on each chair with the 6 finalists attached. So please feel free to submit your audience vote at the end of the event. And secondly, we also have provided you with an innovation card. We'd love to hear your feedback on what points you think need innovating in our industry or what innovation means to you. And we have a big innovation wall, which we will be posting these to later on today. So please take some time to fill these out, and we'll be collecting them at the end, or you can drop them at the registration table. Okay, final call. Can the people at the back please come and take their seats? Thank you very much. All right, well, we hope you enjoyed the first half. I know we had a couple of technical glitches, but hopefully all sorted. And I think you'll all agree, and the feedback I've heard just going around the room in this short time is everyone's been really impressed by the first 3 finalists. So thanks again to them for being brave enough to take to the stage of the captain's table. All right, next up, I would like to invite David Schaus up to the stage. David Schaus is representing Owen Rotational Lining, and they are proving that heavy industry is ripe for disruption. So please all give a big hand and welcome David to the stage. Thank you.
I'll use this. Good afternoon. My name is David Schaus, and I'm the owner of Irwin Rotational Lining, located in Shenzhen, China. We have 2 main products. We do polyethylene rotolining of carbon steel pipes, and we do pipe refurbishment. Before we start into the value proposition of our product, I'd like to describe how we came about developing this product. For many years, we were a voyage repair company, which means we were renewing seawater pipes at terminals and anchorages in China. But those are small jobs, and we're ambitious. We wanted more. But the big jobs are being done at dockyards in China, and nobody can beat the price of a Chinese dockyard for a seawater pipe. So we had to figure out a way to do something different. We had to figure out a way to innovate. So this is what we came up with. We came up with pipe refurbishment. Pipe refurbishment is taking an old pipe and making it into a better than new pipe at the fraction of a cost of actually making a new pipe. We build an indestructible plastic pipe inside the steel pipe. So judges, can you look under your name tag and pull it out? I would encourage you to touch and feel this wonderful product as I speak. So now let's talk about the value proposition, which is the real driver for this product. A refurbished pipe costs 40 to 50% less than a new pipe. A refurbished pipe is going to last longer than the original by virtue of the superior polyethylene lining that you see on your sample. And by the way, there are some samples floating around the room, so please pass them around. Pipe refurbishment results in a pipe that will always fit. It'll always fit because it's the same pipe. And finally, pipe refurbishment is faster by virtue of the process than making and coating a new pipe. This is our financial performance year to date. It does look a little bit like an Apple computer type net profit, which we're very proud of, and I'll tell you why it's been so good, and then I'll tell you why we can leverage that into something even better. We are benefiting tremendously from the sulfur scrubber retrofit market. Our PE line pipe products come in at 20 to 30% less expensive than our GRE competitors. We can make an entire inlet and outlet line of pipe in as little as 20 days, while the GRE guys are asking for 60, 90 days, and we cost less. So with all these great things right here, what do we want to do to make it even better? Well, in the last 6 months, I've had 4 competitors sprout up. In China, things move fast. Manufacturers are smart. And I don't have a patent on polyethylene lining pipes. But I have a very strong patent portfolio on refurbishing pipes with the compelling value proposition that I've already mentioned. In another year and a half, possibly 2 years, the market for polyethylene lining is going to be smaller than it is right now. And since I've had 4 competitors jump up in the last 6 months, let's say there's going to be 20 by the end. How many folks bought a lot of bulk carriers in 2007 when the day rates were $50,000? What happened in 2008? You couldn't even cover CapEx. So our strategy here is that we want to leverage our strong patent portfolio, which is surrounding the polyethylene pipe refurbishment business, so that when the market crashes and there's a lot of overcapacity, we're going to repurpose those folks to pipe refurbishment with that compelling value proposition. Unlike just about anybody here, I'm not asking you for money. I'm asking you for your help. I'm asking you to show me how to create a licensing environment like MAN Diesel, Wärtsilä. I can license my product to all these folks that are going to have the excess capacity. And why will they do it? Because the pain point will be so high then, they will have no choice. But I recognize I'm an engineer, I'm an industrialist, but I'm getting out of my comfort zone with here. I need your help. Thank you.
With a question. To me, it also sounds like you could have a great environmental impact with this solution. Are you able to quantify that in one respect or another? Do you have an impact on, I don't know, what are the metrics you're using to measure?
Absolutely. And forgive me, that was supposed to be one of the topics I was supposed to cover. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to cover it now. In very simple terms, a seawater pipe is renewed not because the steel has corroded away and the pipe is no good. A seawater pipe is renewed because the coating on the pipe tends to have damage in a specific area, which will result in a pinhole leak, and then they can patch the pipe, but it doesn't meet the class requirements, so then you have to renew it. 99% of a pipe that is being renewed is typically still sound steel. So for our patented pipe refurbishment process, we are taking it through a heavy industrial process to make it better than new, but you can't get around the fact that we are recycling 99% of the old pipe. And when we talk about polyethylene, I can make not only an environmental case that the polyethylene I put inside that pipe can be recycled, I can make a business case at a braking yard that is in their best business interest to remove that polyethylene and recycle it, and maybe I can use it again. So yes, the green credentials are very compelling and I think very easy to understand.
Okay, What you're really therefore talking about is not plastic pipes or what you put inside a pipe. You're talking about whether you can make those contracts, those patents stick in China. I mean, you're going to believe that you can leave your competitors behind because those bits of paper are actually worth all the time and effort that you put into them. That's what we're really talking about here, is it?
No, I don't think that's what we're really talking about.
Well, I
think that is a big aspect of what we're talking about. Okay.
Well, I mean, if it isn't true that you can rely on those patents, then other people will do they will do what you do as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe that China is continuing to strengthen its IP environment.
So is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. I
yes.
mean, yeah.
But
so you think you can rely on these pieces of paper?
Yes, sir. I think I can.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, because if you can't, then this is, you know. I mean, there are lots of. I mean, this is what this trade war is mostly about, after all, is that there haven't been people sticking to the rules, and that's a large part of what it's all about. It's not about soya beans or something. It's about IT, you know, or
that is certainly an important aspect of these discussions. Yes.
Okay, so from that point on, you can rely on these. You will get revenue by licensing, and that's your business model.
That represents the scalability factor here. When I started this program and I was speaking to people from the VC world, they keep talking about scalability. I'm a manufacturer. Give me $1 million, I'll give you $500,000 a year in revenue on that. If you want $1 million, you got to give me $2 million. I'm trying to change the paradigm by developing a licensing regime, but not asking people to build and license. There's going to be a tremendous amount of pain when the market crashes. And when people are crying and in pain, they want to say yes to something. And I'm going to give them something to say yes to that is very compelling. A win-win.
Okay, well...
David, you've mentioned twice the market crashing and then you'll be able to cash on. What are you actually referring to with respect to the market crashing?
Okay. Right now, I'm doing 90% of my work PE lining wash lines for sulfur scrubbers. The reason that's important is because the sulfur here becomes sulfuric acid when it comes down the wash line. It's very acidic. So it eats a lot of the traditional coatings that are used in pipes historically. Polyethylene lining is the rock star of protecting these pipes. So there's a feeding frenzy right now. I am turning away work left, right, and center because I don't have the capacity to do it right now. But I don't want to build a new factory because I see how the competitors have sprung up like weeds right now. I don't want to chase a trend. I was a first mover, but I can read the writing on the wall. How do I turn this into a future win for me with my prediction that there's going to be far too much capacity in the industry that I am an expert in perhaps a year and a half? But it might not work that way. If the gap between high sulfur and low sulfur fuel remains big, then they're going to be building out sulfur scrubbers for the next 3 to 5 years after that, and I will benefit tremendously from that. And it means we defer this plan until the market is ripe for that opportunity. But we need to start planning now.
Sorry, I apologize. I still don't follow. If the market crashes, then the demand for someone to license the product still is not going to be there, right?
Forgive me. Like I said, we have 2 products right now. We do the polyethylene lining of the new steel pipe, which is related to the sulfur scrubber market. The other product we do is when the vessel goes into the dockyard, instead of renewing those pipes, they disassemble, they send it to my factory, and I will refurbish an entire cooling system about 72 to 96 hours, give it back, and they'll reassemble it. And the vessel will then go to the breaking yard with those pipes. We also do new buildings, but that's a very price competitive market. I don't like low margin business. I run away from it like the plague. I want to be in a high margin business. If I'm recycling 99% of the pipe and I'm coming in at a 50% margin to a new pipe from the dockyard, my profit margin on that 50% price is considerably higher than the dockyard's price. I don't even have to buy the materials for the pipe. I'm just putting some plastic inside. I've simplified it, and it is a heavy industrial process, but at the end of the day, my material costs are about that much. The dockyard's material costs are like this much.
And last one from me is really around the guarantees that you're offering around the product and the process itself when they're being fitted into the systems.
Every single one of my pipes comes with a 5-year replacement warranty on it. In the since 2015, where we actually started going into a reasonable level of production on this, I have had only one guarantee claim, and that was a pipe that I found mechanical damage inside. I still replaced it for free. Good customer, I'm not going to argue with them. But from my perspective, I have not had a single coating failure since I have started producing pipes on an industrial basis. And I don't think any other coating company can make a statement like that and have it be true. Yes, sir.
You mentioned about the heavy industrial process involved. What's the energy consumption or the carbon footprint compared to creating new pipes compared to your solution of the refurbishment?
Okay. The steps for refurbishing a pipe are basically you have a pyrolysis cleaning process, you have a blasting process, you have a repair process, an inspection, and the final one is PE lining. That is appreciably the same to PE lining a brand new pipe. So where does the carbon footprint reduction come from? It comes from the fact that we're reusing 99% of the old pipe. So I don't know how to quantify that in tons of CO2, but I can tell you that we didn't have to make that pipe, but if I make a new one, I have to make it again. And that is a significant carbon reduction.
Yep. Thank you.
I still think you should just run through the business, because it's not about, I mean, the question here was about sort of green and all the rest of it, but you are wanting to find a way to license out your product in China with third parties. That's the business model. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I would also like to do it globally, but I'd like to start in China where I understand the market, and I'd like to start in China where in around 2 years my competitors are going to be crying and they want a white knight to come in there and show them how to do something profitable with that equipment that's now sitting idle.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, David, thank you for your presentation. My question is very similar to the one of Paul. In 2 years' time, what will be your revenue stream? I mean, it will be 100% from licensing, or will you continue to refurbish? And what will be the ratio on the top line?
Well, I have a 5,000 square meter factory in Shenzhen, and it's soon going to be a 7,000 square meter factory when my neighbor moves out in a month and a half. So yes, we want to continue doing that. I don't like low margin products. And my products right now are high margin products because there's a market shortage. With all the competition that's coming up, how do I keep still making high margin products? Well, I've invested in that. I have the largest coating oven in the world in my Shenzhen factory. It is massive and it might not fit in this room because the ceiling is not high enough. Okay? We are doing parts for the sulfur scrubber retrofit market like DN 1800 elbows that nobody else in the world can turn. So you better believe if no one else in the world can do it, we can get a good margin on that. Now, whereas they're copying the low-hanging fruit, no one is going to invest $500,000 in an oven that big. And by the way, we designed that oven. They'd have to figure out how to build it too, to compete with me on that market. So as the market and the margins in certain products go down, we leverage our R&D pipeline in the new things. We've got some great stuff going on with fluid beds, deck pipes for tankers. If you come here next year, and if they have me, I'm going to tell you about the innovative products in fluidized beds and the revolution in protecting deck piping on tankers. And it's going to be awesome. But I'm not going to be doing the same thing I'm doing today 2 years from now, much less 6 months from now, because that's how companies go out of business. You have to continue to innovate. And I'm trying to show that the heavy industry, because I am in heavy industry, I am in manufacturing, my business is not sexy to many of the folks in this room, but it is. And it makes a lot of money. And if I can get some additional knowledge beyond my personal comfort zone and my personal knowledge base, then I think I can take the next step. I want to be a listed company. I don't want to have 50 staff in my factory. That factory that's making those products right now I only signed the lease on that in October of 2018. We're doing a 40% net profit on a factory that was commissioned in January of 2019. So I would like to do more things like that.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Lovely. All right, thank you. Can everyone please give David a big round of applause? Thank you very much. Thanks, David. All right, we are now on to our fifth finalist of the afternoon. Can I please invite Gary Vaz up to the stage? He's representing Tobotics, who are disrupting the tug industry. Please welcome Gary to the stage.
Yeah, use this, yeah. Okay. Are we ready for all the developments that's going to happen in the towage industry? Remotely controlled tugboats, autonomous tugboats, they use cranes to pass the ropes. But is that going to really give you better control of your ship? For the last 200 years, since the tugboats have been used, the ropes have still been there, and that's still going on. The problem is that when a ship is in push position, it can't pull. And when it's in pull position, it can't push. So what we have here is this problem of when we need the thrust, it may just not be available. So what do? As a captain, we compensate. We know that this tug is going to take some time, so we plan ahead and we say, okay, get into push position because we're going to need you after 10 minutes, right? But what happens if we need something else in between? Then it's not possible, right? I'm sure all of you as captains would realize that we just don't have control of our vessel when we use a tugboat. I was a ship captain for some years. In one of the ports I was coming alongside, 2 tugs pushing me in, my vessel just got angled just before the berth. It was too late, the tug couldn't pull me off in time and it contacted with the berth. This problem exists in all the ports in the world. Every ship coming in that needs a tug has got a problem. It's happening as we speak. So our solution is to use detachable thrusters. These units are launched into the water when the ship comes into the harbor. They go up to the breakwater and meet the vessel there, and they attach at the turn of the bilge. And once attached, the bridge team then has direct control of them as a bow and stern thruster. Or you can just say, autonomously position me to berth number 3. So what does this solve? When you have a direct contact with the vessel, your response time is improved by 98% because now push to pull is just 2 to 3 seconds. You've got direct control on the thrust. You don't have to call out to any tug captain. 0 emissions because they're fully electric. Crew don't have to pull those heavy ropes up on the deck and causing all those risks when you're handling these ropes. You know, tugs idle for about 50% of the time that they're used. And by using this system, we're actually reducing the energy demand because 50% idling, this unit doesn't have to do. They can dynamically position a ship even inside a lock gate. And most of all, there's a 30 to 50% cost saving. Operating cost saving, yeah? The market is huge. There's about 18,000 tugs. We want to look at about the market which is below 4,000 horsepower, so that's about 80% of the market. And out of that, there's about 11% of that market which is harbor terminal towage, which we want to kind of target. And that's our area. But what's happening here? You're giving an option. You tell now once the systems come up, you have the option a boat and a rope, or you have this system, right? It's just a matter of replacement. We just replace the existing tugs as soon as people realize that, okay, why am I using these ropes? Why don't I change to something else? A tug costs about 4 to 5 million. Our unit costs 6 million. But the operator makes a 20% return because his operating costs are much lower. My name is Gary Vaz. I sailed for about 15 years, and then I've been a consultant designing new ports. I do nautical studies and ship simulation studies. My co-founder, he is working for Magnus, developing wind sails for ships, and also a professor of naval architecture. And I've got 3 expert board advisors. One of them was the ex-MD of Smith Lamlalco, one of the largest tug owners. So where are we now? We were seed funded by Port of Amsterdam because they wanted to use these units in their new lock gates at IJmuiden. We got a grant from the Dutch government. We got a letter of intent from Kotag, one of the largest towing companies in Europe. And we've been now building, we've just built our 3rd underwater vehicle model. It's a 1:25 scale small unit. We can launch it into the water. We sit on the dock with our laptops and control this unit, attaching to a floating object and pushing it around. It's amazing to see it, for someone who's developed this system, and you can see the future in this 1:25 scale. So what's our next step? We need to build the second model. So we have 2 of these units attached to a 1:25 scale ship, and then we can test it on a ship. And then subsequently, because we're learning every time we are improving, the next stage would be then to complete the design and class approvals. Our vision of the future is that every ship captain has full control of the tugboat and thrust on his ship at any instant. Our vision is that you have your harbor towage done in the most energy efficient and cost effective way. And we are going to make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. It's very interesting, but it's still very early stage from what I see in the presentation. So I'm wondering, what's your roadmap now? How fast are you hoping to get to an MVP?
Yeah. So right now, the thing with testing of, let's say when we do a port, we plan a new port, we test it in a 1:25 scale. And that is actually the proof of concept of a port, right? So when we do our 1:25 scale, it's actually proven. So that's our next step, and that's the first step we are looking to achieve. And yeah, so we need to get this funding of 250,000 for this first 1:25 scale second model. And it's a 2-year process, scale model, and design and class approval. So that's our roadmap. 2 years before we launch the first unit, and then we are into the first set.
And just as a follow-up question to that, so once you have the ready-made product, what's the adoption barriers? Can you just put them into any port and it works, or does it require any modifications on the ship side as well?
Yeah. So the idea was that we start without any modifications on the ship. So these are a series of magnets that take the curvature of any hull. But that's not the main goal. I mean, we've got the actual design is that eventually ships, when they go into dry dock, they have these 6 standardized connection points on every hull that these units go in and just couple to. That's the eventual goal. But till then, we're doing a magnetic arrangement system, so there's absolutely no change required on the ship, and it can handle any type of fouling a normal ship has. Of course, not like a rig which has the big barnacles, but a regular moving ship.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Question, when you start to bring this to market with the port authorities, what kind of behavioral changes are required on their side? Because it's quite a new technology. I don't know if it's autonomous or they'll actually be moving it like a remote control, but like sort of what's the training process like, and how does an ongoing usage look like from the staff that are staffed there permanently?
Yeah, so we want to start in an easy way and step-by-step way. So autonomous is the next stage. We're first going to have it as a thruster, a detachable thruster. And detachable thrusters really, there are a few regulations for that regarding stability, structural strength and everything. So when this is not a tugboat, this is a detachable thruster. And so a ship gets a detachable thruster and she uses it as a thruster. So in that sense, there's not so much. On the port side, like we're working with Port of Amsterdam, they want to use it in their lock gates. So we have to set up, so we need a shore infrastructure where these units are placed on shore, launched into the water, so they have that, they're going to provide that. And the pilot has to be able to know that this is what it is, this is how they attach. So yes, we have to go through a bit of training process, but we're going to do it in stages. We're not going to go all the way to the autonomous stage right in the start.
Okay, and sorry, one follow-up question to that. Again, because it's a new technology, and you're essentially adding operating efficiency, I think more ships in and out of the harbor at any time. If there are collisions or anything like that, is there any kind of special insurance you would have to offer as a result of it bringing this in?
Yeah, so we've spoken to insurers, and what they say is that they're going to charge us a premium of 2.5%, which is higher than the tugboats. But they're saying, show it to us, let it run. It's automatically going to come down. So it's a matter of starting up, learning a lot of things along the way, and just changing as we go along.
Why wouldn't this just be part of new building ship design? Why, if a new building is coming out, if this works, then I would expect that any new design of vessel would think about where thrusters need to be, and I'm sure a lot of them already have it, to be able to manage harbor operations versus it being a detachable thruster that connects to the vessel.
So, of course, thrusters have been around for many years, and the cruise ships and the offshore vessels, they have their own thrusters, right? But the other ships that do a longer voyage don't carry it because it's a cost to carry. You have to have extra generator capacity. You got getting that extra drag because of the thrusters. So you want to so that's the reason why the tugboats came up, so that you have this system that we pay when we use and forget about it after that. So that's what we are doing, is we're going to target the ships that feel that they don't want to carry the thruster because they don't call ports so often. It's just a cost, and so that's the idea.
Right. Can I ask you a few questions? Usually the tugs are paid for by the owners, and it's a very considerable cost. But it doesn't sound as if your solution will be that much cheaper. So because it's such a traditional, old-fashioned industry, which of course you know from being a master of a ship, to compel owners to sort of give up the comfort of a lovely little tug coming around the end of the pier to pick up the ship and bring it into port. There's something incredibly comforting about this. Whereas in the future, you're saying there will be these things coming out. I mean, the cost element of the comparison is going to be quite important. I mean, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, firstly, it's going to be a lovely little better thing coming along rather than the lovely little old thing coming along.
Well, if it costs more, it won't feel that.
Yeah. So the capital cost is more, but the operating cost is much cheaper, and so he's actually saving a lot more.
But I mean, you brush that aside slightly. I mean, you're going to have an infrastructure on a key. You're going to have to own it. You're going to have all this electric, power system, charging maintenance and all the rest of that. I mean, obviously
Exactly.
there are all costs like that, but I wonder just how much your comparative cost analysis has developed. That's really what I'm asking.
Oh, relating to tugs. So we looked
that's
at
your competitor, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. So so like I said, I told you about the capital cost, and yes, you're right. We have this shore infrastructure, which is actually common. If we have more tugs in the port or more towboats in the port, then we can combine that infrastructure. So that's capital cost. In terms of operating cost, so the tugboat. So we've looked at a minimum difference of 30%, but that's like, very conservative. I mean, we're expecting 50% in terms of differences because, so we looked at maintenance insurance, what's the difference on that? We looked at the fuel and battery charging. We looked at manning cost and yeah, there's a lot of room because this unit doesn't have any maintenance. I mean, it's a show-based thing. Every time you finish, you pick it up, you place it on shore. You don't have to go into dry dock. You have your thrusters in front of you.
I've got all that, but I mean, but then who's your market? I mean, the market is dominated by tugboat companies all over the world. They're the people who are going to have to buy this off you.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
That's my market also. So I
know
want to
it's
sell.
your market, but I mean, what are they saying to you about this?
Yeah, so I've been meeting all of them. I met Kotak, Smith Nalco, Iskis, all the tug operators. They're actually very happy. I mean, we've had some really good discussions. Always, well, how's it going? Come over for coffee. So it's a good discussion, and we want to work with them. But the thing is that the first couple of units will be operated by us because until people get that comfort, it has to be operated by us. But they are our clients also. So
just jumping onto what Paul just said, but based on what you said, your business model in targeting 20% returns is predicated on generating the same market rate as a owner will pay a tug today, but with lower operating costs based on what you've just said. However, it's going to be very difficult to persuade anyone to kind of move this way if they're paying the same rate. And so the adoption of this technology for a owner will only start working as that rate comes down if the tech is efficient, thereby kind of changing your returns you've modeled out on the 20% returns.
Yeah. So right now, because we're offering a higher technology, we want to maintain that rate and we don't want to kind of disrupt the market. That's the idea. So I mean, we don't want to come down on pricing, and but I see what you're saying. So if you're saying the owner is getting the same option, so now he's saying, I've got these two things, same price, better control. Which one is my ship and my captain happy with? What's going to make sure that my ship doesn't hit the dock and have those problems, and it's coming at the same cost. So.
But the master's more familiar with the tugboats because that, as what Paul was saying, they've been used to doing that, so he or she feels safer using that versus something else which they're kind of new to and paying the same rate for that, right?
I think, so what it is that the first unit has to go out there, and once people see it, that's what it is. So so when I first started out to sea, I had the sat-nav was still there every 4 hours, position fix, and I remember my captain telling me, we don't need GPS. We've got the sat-nav every 4 hours, that's good enough for us. And today, if we ask any of the navigators, would they be happy with the sat-nav? So it's a kind of with the shipping, I know it myself. I'm after so many years of experience, I'm also skeptical about everything, and it's once I see it, then I say, okay, this sounds good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's been. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been waiting.
Yeah, you've been waiting for a long time.
I think it's a fascinating idea.
Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Really impressive. One question. A ship comes to the port. How many of these machines you need, the underwater vehicle model, to replace one tug?
So these are 2400 kilowatt units. They can generate about 32 tons of thrust. And we are looking at working up to the 40-ton bollard pull tugs. So we'll be replacing tugs up to 40-ton bollard pull. But if you see, actually we can handle bigger because let's say, for example, a ship is going into Brisbane port, 65,000 deadweight, she's allowed to not have a tug if she's got a 1100 kilowatt bow thruster. These are 2400 kilowatt. So they are handling a Panamax with a 1100 kilowatt thruster. I'm giving double that power.
Right.
So I think that we can handle bigger ships. But at the moment we are saying, let's stick to because people like this, I like a 40 ton, I like a 80 ton bollard pull, but then, yeah.
So when for one ship, you will need 2 of these machines on each side of the hull, at the front and at the back. That means 4 of them. Is that correct?
So these units are pull and push. So they are attached on one side and they can pull and push. So, so then we have 2, because one is on the bow. We still need to control the bow and we still need to control the stern, but not on both sides, because the other side, once we come alongside, we don't want to shift around and come back. So that's the reason why the original design was pull and push.
Thanks. I have more questions, but my fellow judge.
In terms of the technology itself, have you done any investigation on the reliability of the technology? And what's the time frame of them in terms of the power consumption that's using, and how long can they operate for?
Okay. So reliability, we are going to use everything off the shelf. So it's going to be everything is there, thrusters, batteries, put them together and it's off. So it's not that we're designing any of the other systems, right? The only thing that we are controlling is the software and the control of that. That's a process, that's a testing process. We'll go through that process and confirm the reliability of that. Systems will be, for example, batteries would have their regular backups and emergency systems. And so reliability, what was the other, I'm so sorry, what was the other question?
For the time that they can operate for.
Yeah, so we've got, 2,400 kilowatts of thruster. If we're looking at a 2,000 kilowatt hour battery. Now what we've seen is for a 3-hour voyage, we've looked at records of tugboats using, how long they run for, how much engine power. There are reports on records on how much power they're using. And what we see is that when we use that analysis, in 1,000 kilowatts, we can do a 3-hour voyage, which includes going up to the vessel, attaching, working with the vessel, and coming back in. So a 3-hour voyage requires 1,000 kilowatt. We've doubled that so that we have backup capacity, but yeah, we'll just be using 1,000 kilowatt hour.
Right, I know everyone has a lot more questions, but I'm sorry, we have to cut you off there. So can everyone please give Gary a big round of applause?
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, well, these finalists arrived, apart from obviously David, on Saturday night, so they've already been here for a couple of days, and they've worked really hard on sort of perfecting their presentations. It's not an easy task to get up in front of everybody and in front of the judges, so we're really appreciative of that. So we're going to invite our last finalist to head up on stage. Can we please invite Marat Zaralov to come up on stage? He's representing Maritime. Maritime are solving the tampered certificate problem in our industry. So please give him a round of applause. Thank you. Quite typically, we're having a last-minute tech problem. Hold on.
Yep. Very like it. Can I help you? Can you hold this?
Right, just give us 2 seconds. Thank you.
Full screen. No, that's not working. I think we need the owner of the laptop here.
This is mine.
Oh, it's yours.
This is it. Right. Do we need to maybe just restart it? Talk amongst yourselves. We're just figuring this out. Thank you.
Oh,
you got it?
yep.
How did we get onto?
I think we go to the presentations and verified, and we go to the full screen, and I get the clicker.
Great.
No. See if it works.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're there. So we'll let Marat get on with his presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience. Hi, I'm Marat from Maritime, and our solution is tackling 3 major problems. The first one is Sephira on average has 9 paper-based certificates. And if one of them is lost, or damaged, or forgotten, the Sephira is not allowed on board the ship. Second problem is current verification methodology is outdated. In some cases, you have to literally call them or write the emails and wait for 2 days on average to get your certificates verified. And it's estimated to cost the industry 31 million man-hours every year. The third problem is tampered certificates. According to the last IMO study, 82% of the respondents encountered tampered certificates in the last 5 years. And this leads to more than 1.6 billion United States dollars in insurance claims and more than 600 fatalities every year due to human error. There are other problems. Let's say if you have a driver license, it tells us nothing about how good a driver you are. And another problem, my favorite, is a complicated and interrelated stakeholder ecosystem in maritime. But we seem to have figured out our way forward. Our technology is based on blockchain. Our patent is pending. We have issuers on one side, let's say training centers, who issue the certificates in our system. We have requesters on the other side who can verify these certificates instantly in seconds. And we have a Sephira who has the so-called Sephira electronic passport, which is basically a digital wallet with enhanced functionality, like career planning, like tracking of your certificate expiration, etc., etc. The best news is the solution is here, and it works. Here's our traction in the education industry. We started in April 2018, and we developed the technology in just 10 months. In January 2019, we launched it, and in another 10 months, we rolled out our services in 2 countries, Singapore and Philippines, acquired 12 active clients, and issued 90,000 certificates. And in the next year, we plan to issue 3 million certificates and roll out our services in 5 countries. Value proposition for maritime stakeholders. We have 4 major stakeholders: flag states, ship management companies, ship owners, and training centers. And all of them derive up to 97% reduction in administrative load related to issuance and verification. All of them derive the benefit of complete elimination of forgery. And flag states additionally derive stronger compliance with IMO regulations because they get the access, they have the ability using our platform to detect the source of fake certificates and eliminate that. Ship management companies get an access to an untapped pool of personnel, of qualified personnel in our platform via our recruitment platform. And ship owners get up to 60% reduction in damages, which will lead to a reduction in insurance cost. And training centers get up to a 67% reduction in issuance cost. How do we make money? Our revenue model depends so we charge issuers $2 per issuance. We charge requesters $1 per verification. It adds up to a market size of $250 million. And the recruitment platform is expected to deliver another 100 million, so it adds up to $350 million market size for maritime industry, but that's not all. Education industry is 1.5 billion, so in total it's around $2 billion. This is a competitor landscape. We have a lot of competitors. Good news are, most of them either not in maritime or they don't have a product, with only one notable exception. This is another proof of our solution's viability. During the Pier 71 Smart Port Challenge held in Singapore every year, we were the only one out of 3 companies solving the same problem who signed an LOI with British Petroleum, who were the primary problem statement holder. We also signed an LOI with PMMA in Philippines, and we're in discussions signing an LOI with Marina, which is flag state authorities in Philippines, and hold 30% of Sephira's market. This is our team. I know it's not enough. That's why we're here. We're looking for your support, for your advice, for your industry insights. And yeah, welcome any questions. Thanks. Sorry for mess.
I'm curious about the long-term vision for your company.
Yes.
Is the maritime market enough, or are you looking to move into adjacent markets?
Yes, so our first market is education.
Yeah.
Maritime market is the second market. And definitely we'll look also into background checks, because when we have the critical mass, it becomes possible. It's not the end, but it is a good market to start. And I tell you why. Because in maritime industry, now the issue is heating up. One of our competitors, very brilliant ones, they don't have a product, but they are doing the education of the market. I won't name names, but they are doing a great job. They asked Philippines authorities to pay them $5 million to develop the product. We told the Marine that we can do it for free for them because we have the product. So yeah, I think it's the best point in time to enter this market.
Why?
Because the change is nearby. And you want to be in the right place in the right time. And we're in Singapore. 70% of seafarers are sourced from Southeast Asia. And we're in the right time, because I believe definitely in 3-4 years it will happen. And we have a great team.
Right. If I could go, I want to hear from our sort of ship manager end of the table more than talking about, because you know, how they see it, because I mean, I can understand as a shipping type person the sort of the ability to have access to this sort of information easily and to hand and all the rest of it, to avoid all the losses of bits of paper around the world is fantastic. But I also see it sort of being in, you know, sort of bills of lading issues as well as the issues you've already described. So it's really a question of, you know, where this can all, where it is now to where it actually can be. I could see a sort of very broad range of things it could go into in addition to where it is at the moment. So I'm looking to hear more from the ship managers to give the sort of critical questioning here, because if they can see it works, then I can see how it can go elsewhere.
Some do, some not.
Yeah.
Let's hear.
Not to put me on the spot or anything.
No, I thought, you know, that's what you're here for, mate.
So all that was just putting me on the spot.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. A lot of it is, a lot of what you've just said at the beginning is a one-off problem. So let's just say as a ship management company, we're recruiting a first-time master for us and we're verifying the documents. After we've verified the, you know, certificate of competency, things like that, it's wham bam done. And then I don't need to, if that person is in my employ, I don't actually need to do anything anymore to continue to verify that information.
True.
How have you thought about this just being a one-off problem, and then after that it's just kind of showing that this is the document?
Yes, definitely. Because there is not only ship management companies that use this service. We plan to roll out it for other maritime industry stakeholders. Let's say they do checkups in port authorities, right? Port state controls. They need to check if the seafarer has valid documents, right? That's one of the things.
But you're asking someone to pay for something they're not doing together right now, right? Right now you just show your documents, wham bam, thank you. But now who's going to be paying for all of this additional verification? I appreciate on the first way in where, you know, I'm using the ledger to verify the documents because it's coming from the flag state, etc. But once I've paid that $1, it's done there. Then why will someone actually pay for that again to create an ecosystem?
Let me describe the situation. It's not that simple. Actually, in the maritime industry, the turnover rate among seafarers is quite high. It's 30% on average. I don't know about
That's
particular company. That is with the data I have. And people just move jobs. People move flag states, and flag states need to verify the information too to issue their stamp that this seafarer is valid to work under their flag. Yeah.
But once they've issued that, why do they have to keep verifying it?
So it's not like keep verifying him.
But my problem is, it's what you're saying I get.
Yes.
But everything is just a one-off.
you issue it once, you do it once, you're doing it
but
once.
certificates are not forever, right? His certificate might expire in 3 years, in 5 years. It depends on the geography. On
Right,
the
but it's still
country.
one-off problems. Do you get what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
you're creating. I guess my point is, pitch to me as a ship manager there what your worth is as a business
For
to
ship
me,
manager.
so that I can say, this makes sense versus my existing process.
Let me ask you a question. How much time it takes for you to enter the data of all the certificates of one Seafarer into your queuing system?
Not much.
1 hour.
We have OCRs, we scan things, we have electronic. Most of it's already electronic.
Yeah, but on
So-
average it's 1 hour.
I don't think so.
And that's the data I have for several companies like TK Marine, et cetera, et cetera. So if it takes 1 hour and we make it in 1 minute, is it worth it? Is it worth $1 paying for 1 hour of job of your employees?
Right, but now that that's done, what next?
What next? Recruitment platform. Imagine that we have 50% of international seafarers on our platform. And you can hire qualified, and the seafarer who already approved by us that he's qualified. How do we make sure that he's qualified? Because the fake certificates are coming on different stages, right? Let's say one seafarer can just take this certificate of another seafarer and put his name and his photo on this certificate, and you might check him online, but he's still a forged certificate, and he can have no knowledge of how to work on a ship. He's a newbie to that. He's green. How can we change it? We have a way to make the notification in our system and eliminate this.
But then you're saying that we're recruiting only based on certificates, which is not correct either, right?
No.
You have to go through psychometric evaluations.
Absolutely.
You have to go through a lot of processes,
Absolutely.
interviews, checks on the ships you've worked
Absolutely. Yes. But you can look first on their certificates. Do they have them? Is it proven that he's not on the blacklist of seafarers? Yeah. You can check these first, and then you go and evaluate other things. And it's not like you're paying the usual recruitment fee, like 18%. It's only 3%, so it's worth it. That's my view.
Do you have a ballpark assessment of how much it will cost you to get one seafarer up and running on your platform? And how much recurring revenue will you have from that one seafarer?
Yes, up and running, it's very cheap. I mean, in terms of cost, incurred costs, it's almost non-existent. Once you have the technology, you just do it, and that's it. You upload the different seafarers on your platform. In terms of recurring revenues, we expect that when we have a database, only of the verification services will have quite significant recurring revenue component. I cannot tell you what kind of percent that will be of total revenue, but I expect it to be higher than 70%.
Where are you with the discussion with flag states at this stage?
2 flag states we're discussing it with. Both are interested. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll know the results in Philippines. Can I name you? And Marshall Islands, we're also in discussion. We're meeting them in Philippines, Crew Connect. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. But now the feedback is positive, very positive.
Okay, can I ask you about the blockchain part of this? This is the bit that sort of makes it all secure.
Yes.
So who says it really is secure? I mean, how does that? I mean, can you just in 2 sentences say how that?
No problem.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're using Ethereum.
Yep.
We have kind of 2-tier information storage. So the first one is stored on our blockchain system, and the second one is stored at AWS service, because we need data be stored in each country, right? Because of data protection and all of that. And in terms of blockchain, we are certified provider of services in Singapore. The initiative of Singapore is called OpenCert. It's a government initiative, and that tells us something too.
Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, thank you very much. Can everyone please give our last finalist a round of applause? Okay, so you've seen our 6 finalists, and they all did brilliantly, I think you'll agree. We are now going to have sort of a 15-minute break for our, I'm sure, very busy judges to make their final decision. During that time, we actually thought, while they're off deliberating, that we might invite the startups back to the stage, and we will have a couple of microphones. If anyone wanted to ask them a question, then please let us know. And also, if you have the voting cards, please make sure as well you cast your audience vote. So can I get our startups back to the stage? And I'll invite the judges to the very glamorous deliberating area behind the screen. Oh, we've moved them, okay. Yeah, not an easy decision. If you could just line up along the stage, that'd be great.
All right. Okay. It does feel a bit like they are in a Shark Tank right now because they're standing up in front of you. They don't want to sit. They're eagerly awaiting any questions you may have for them. So the floor is open. Does anyone have any questions? All right.
Sorry, we've only got 2 mics, so we're going to do a bit of running back and forth.
Thank you. I have a question for Captain Vaz. Fouled hull, pull mode. How does your thruster work? And I'm talking about the limitation of the magnetic power, because we are talking about magnetic initial traction, right? So
yeah. Hello. Yeah. Do we get extra points for if we get more questions? So we're looking at a 5 mm air gap right now, and we're planning for a 5 mm air gap, which includes paint and everything. But if you know, paint is just a couple of microns, and then fouling on a normal ship is 2 mm, you know. So we're not really into, like I said, we don't handle the barnacle ships, but a moving ship doesn't have barnacles. So in terms of pull, and that's where the magnets are holding. Actually, it's a nice thing that there's another company in the Netherlands who's done this magnetic mooring system. I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm happy because when you have another company that's also doing somewhat similar, and it kind of proves the concept that can be done, and that's what we also calculate, that it can be done, and we can test it in our models. It can be done. So yeah, I think I don't see a problem, and yeah, it should work.
Thank you.
Hi. So I have a question for Irvin Rotational Lining Company. I love the presentation, it was great, but I was still confused about what you are actually looking for here.
What do you do, sir?
I work with Needy in Podcast.
Okay. I want to license my product to polyethylene lining companies that are going to need to be repurposed due to the market cycle. So when you're talking about scalability, which I have learned is very important to the VC individuals right here, if it's a traditional heavy machinery product, you put in 1 million, you get out 500,000. If you want to get out 1 million, you got to put in 2 million to get out 1 million. The scalability factor I'm looking at is by licensing my IPR to other companies. And it's not an original concept. Like I said, MAN Diesel designed the 2-stroke main engine perhaps in Denmark, and then it's built under license in Korea, China, Japan, etc. We have a very strong patent portfolio, and I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of disagreement with those folks that say that patents are not worth the paper they're written on in China. That is not true. My patents are Chinese patents. Okay? The Chinese government has a huge incentive to protect the IPR of a Chinese company, and they will. So what I'm actually looking for is somebody that has the experience, knowledge, connections that can hold my hand through this process. share in the benefit with me, but I know how to make my product. I don't know how to do what I've just described. If I knew how to do it, I wouldn't be asking for assistance. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity for a very scalable and very profitable business to be built around this strategy. And I'm looking for partners to help me to do it, and I'm not asking them for money. I'm asking for their assistance.
Thank you. Any
Thanks,
other
David.
questions? Oh, yes.
Hi, Vikas here from Fleet Management. Gary, a question to you. You said you're going to be taking off-the-shelf products, thrusters and batteries, put them together and use it. Is your product patented? I mean, I didn't hear that word, so I have this question. I mean, how much time would it take for anybody in China or anywhere in the world, for that matter, to take off-the-shelf products and try to do something what you're trying to do now and race up and go ahead of you because they have already the funding? Tugboats themselves, tug companies themselves included.
Yeah, thanks. So we filed a patent in 2015, and then 2017 we did the PCT, and then 2018. So we've got our patents registered. So yeah, it is protected, and I've got my we've learned a lot during this process, and every time I've made a new model, I've been improvising and improvising. So yeah, it's a mix of the IP as well as the knowledge that we have into it.
Any other
Thanks, Vikas.
questions? Yes. All right, Sam.
Rancy.
This is a question for everyone on the stage. What have you learnt about your product and indeed the marketing of your product by entering the captain's table?
So the captain's table, firstly, as a captain, to come to the captain's table is really nice, and to meet all the captains of the industry. So happy to be here, and happy to also that the name is Captain's Table. So I said, oh, Captain's Table, I should get selected, but okay, getting off that. They have they've packed it in such a short time. They've packed in so many people, guest speakers coming in to guide us on various aspects. I think it couldn't be done better. So yeah.
Thank you, Gary. So for Sirut, it was an amazing opportunity to present to Hong Kong our product. So this is very valuable for us. And regarding the experience, to share our solutions during 3 days with all these guys over here was really, really enhancing for, I don't know if it's, enhancing for us. Very valuable, yeah. A really, really good experience, definitely. Thank you, Tabitha, and thank you all the team, definitely.
So for podcast, we've been working on our product for a couple of years now, and I think such forums allow us to just, take a step back and really think again, are we doing the right thing? What is our focus? What's our strategy? Where have we been getting success? Where not? And really thinking about, okay, do we need to change our pitch and our value proposition? And I think that's sort of the time to reflect is what I really think was valuable, and you don't get it in the day-to-day execution when you're just firefighting a lot of things. And then like Eva said, just sharing from the other startups and understanding the challenges they're going through at various stages, that's immensely helpful.
Disclaimer, I advertise on Splash 24/7 even before I got in this event. So I guess the most tangible aspect is that I'm now getting free advertising I didn't have to pay for, Sam. But I'm just joking around here. But Sam has been very good to me over the years. As an industrialist, as a heavy machinery type of person, we typically do not participate in these type of activities. I don't get the benefit on a regular basis of hearing about design thinking or the rest of the things that perhaps in the tech world is more popular or prevalent. So I really appreciated an opportunity to participate in the type of training that I normally do not get.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think every time we go anywhere and speak to anybody, we learn something. And I took Paul's comment away today as an opportunity to figure out how we use that finance problem to potentially reposition something that's valuable to, say, the ship owner. But I learned the most over the past 2 days from the other companies. We've watched each other's pitches for 2 days, and I think today everybody's pitch was different to what it was on Sunday. It's all changed. And I think an interesting opportunity for Tabitha and Suyin is the next time they run this, instead of it being a competition, it could be a collaboration between all the companies to try and build something together, because I can see opportunities where I can work with Eva and I can work with Nadia and I can work with Marilyn, because we're all working in the same space, we're trying to accomplish the same things. And there's just an immense amount of innovation which is going on outside of the sector. And I would encourage the people in the room to look out and to try and find it. It's there. This technology's there. These people have products. They've all got passion. And it just takes one person in the audience to pick these things up and run with them. And the industry will never look the same again. So that was my biggest takeaway from the session. So thank you very much.
Yeah, for me, I would probably name 3 things. The first one is definitely industry connections. So from the very beginning, Sui and Tabitha, you're just amazing. We're very helpful getting connected to industry stakeholders, clarifying what is the real problem, speaking to them. And second thing is getting exposure to such kind of event when we have the opportunity to know so many industry insiders, to get to know so many industry insiders, get advice, get insights, et cetera. And the third and probably the most important things, I realized that there are some organizations with soul, and you guys are the organization with soul. You're just amazing. So thanks for organizers, Tabitha and Suin. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Any more questions?
It's gonna make me cry. I
Yes,
think.
Chow, I'm coming to you. I can run in
I
my
think we've got
heels.
time for probably one more question, and then we're going to have to round up our judges somewhere in the building.
Yeah, hello. I have a question for podcast. I'm actually not from shipping industry, but from technology field. So my question is, your value proposition is really to combine external data with customers' own data to have a customized model for them. But I know in industry, a lot of companies actually, to work with their data, you have to deploy all these models system on their premises. And then you said because you have different customers, you can then leverage their data to understand the market conditions. So my question is, if the data is on premises, how do you actually share the knowledge from these customers to have this better prediction about the market dynamics?
Thank you for the question. You're very right. So we actually work on a cloud-based platform. So we do not work on-premise for customers. So the data from the customers' systems has to be shared to the cloud technology that we have. And that's why we have to go through a stringent security setup and certifications, etc.
So far, all your customers, the data actually is uploaded to your cloud?
Yes.
Okay.
Because like you rightly said, if it's on-premise, then it's not scalable. The challenge really is also in terms of the mindset. Like customers are working with companies like Salesforce for CRM, where they are sharing data on the cloud. So why not in another sphere like the space that we're operating in?
Yeah, also to do with the model, because different customers, their data in different systems, in different formats. To link their data, convert into a way can run on your system. Who is doing the actual job to do this integration? Like, how scalable to get one customer, set up everything is running, and then how long does your model actually need to train to be able to work for this customer accurately, and how do you ensure the quality, your prediction is correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in the last couple of years, when we've worked with 10 of the largest shipping and maritime companies, we've actually gone through all of that journey where we've tried to look at what kind of data do they have, is it across multiple systems, But eventually it comes down to what data do we need? What data does the algorithm need? And now we have a very clear idea on what are the fields and data that we need. And we basically have two options for the customer. Either they just fill it in the relevant format that they have, that we've provided, and they just send it to us like that. Or we can help them clean up that data, and they can send it to us in any format, CSV, Excel, multiple systems, and we would consolidate that. Of course, there's a little bit more effort, approximately about 2 weeks that we would take to consolidate all of that data. In terms of the machine learning, I would say there's probably 30% of the algorithms which are very similar across all customers and does not need any modification. But 70% of the models would require at least some initial training based on different customers' data sets. So that, again, would take about a couple of weeks. So in all, in approximately a month's time, we would be up and running for any new customer. So there's that initial time investment on integration, but after that, it would be pretty scalable.
Okay, we've got one last question, and then we'll check that our judges haven't run away.
Hi, this is a question for Marifred. I think it's a fantastic idea. I wonder how do you see it sitting alongside the ILO 85 identification process for seafarers?
So the question, just to clarify, the question is, how do we see? Can you?
Your facility working alongside with the ILO 185.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about ILO 185. Sorry.
Identification process?
Yes.
Biometric identification process?
Yes.
Which I think would complement at least.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I now remembered about the service. Yeah, sure. It's a great one. We know the major providers in this industry, and I think if we can implement either QR code that has the data of all the documents into the seafarer passport, so-called seafarer passport, right? That would be definitely very complementary. So basically, he will not only have his personal data, but also the data on all his certificates, and he can use one passport to do that, right? Yep.
All right, thank you. I think that was our last question. Okay. I just want to remind everyone that you have voting cards with you. So as the judges are coming back in, so why don't you just, vote for your favorite startup, and we'll see whether it matches.
Just
we'll
pop your card up in the air and we can collect it.
No, we'll come
just
around and collect it.
Put your hands in the air with the cards and we'll collect it. We'll ask our startups, if you could just come and sit maybe to the right of the stage, that would be great. And I think Chris is just rounding up the judges to give their announcement. Hands in the air with any voting cards you want collected. Last chance, thank you. Ronnie's collecting to the left, so stick your hands in the air, thank you. Ronnie, if you could just go down the window side as well, thank you. Oh, thanks, Christine. We lost the judges? Okay. Ah, here we are. Champagne in hand, fabulous. Okay, everybody, the moment you've all been waiting for. We would like to invite Ingrid, who's been nominated as the judge's representative on stage. And we're really, really happy and privileged to have Miss Agnes Choi, Chairman of the Promotion and External Relation Committee of the Hong Kong Maritime and Port Board, who will also be joining us on stage to actually present the prize to the finalists. So could I invite both of you up to the stage, please? Thank you.
Okay. Well, we had a quite an intense discussion. There were so many great solutions presented on stage today. And I think, despite us having chosen a winner, we think that many of the startups that presented today, if not all, are going to be players in the future maritime economy. So I think you done a really great job choosing the candidates for this competition. Having said that, we had to arrive at a winner. And there's a lot of things happening in the space where the winner operates. There's a lot of buzzwords in that space as well. But we think that the timing is really, really great for the winner to really enter the market and take it and become a true winner, not only at the captain's table, but also in the industry at wide. The winner is in predictive analytics. We chose the winner because we see a lot of, low-hanging fruit digitalization in the industry, moving things from paper onto an app. But we really like that the winner is also adding value, telling the customer what to do with the data and how to, really create value for the end user. The company is also very close to commercialization, which factored into our decision. So I think it comes as no surprise after giving these remarks that the jury has landed on Portcast as the winner of the captain's table.
Sorry, can I just ask Ling Xiao, who's my co-founder, to come up?
Congratulations.
Right, do you want to this?
So thank you everyone for coming this afternoon and staying on to the evening. We hope you enjoyed the inaugural Captain's Table event. We'd like to invite the judges and the startups to stay behind for some photo taking, but to the rest of you here, cocktails are now served on the rooftop. And it's a beautiful, amazing rooftop with a beautiful, amazing view and beautiful, amazing alcohol and canopies. So please make your way up to the rooftop. Thank you.
Okay, so audience, please, we will meet you on the rooftop in about 5 minutes. We're just going to take a couple of photos. So can I invite the judges to come up for a photo with the startups, please? And the startups will be coming up to the rooftop as well. So if you didn't get a chance to ask them a question, you'll have a chance in a few minutes' time. Thank you.